They were right about you. You weren't enough. Not then. Not the version they met. Not the version that begged for a seat at their table. Not the version that shrunk itself down to fit inside rooms that were never built for you. That version. They were right to reject it. Because that version was never the real one. Here's what nobody tells you about rejection. It isn't a verdict. It's a filter. It removes the people who are only useful to the version of you that needed them. And what's left, what survives after the silence, after the doors closing, after the phone stops ringing, that's the architecture of something they will never be able to touch. You just can't see it yet, but it's already being built. Think about what happened to you. Someone looked at you and decided you weren't worth it. Maybe it was a person. Maybe it was an opportunity. Maybe it was a room full of people who all came to the same conclusion at the same time. And you felt it, not just in your chest, but in your identity. In the story you told yourself about who you were and what you were capable of. That's the part they aimed for. That's the part they wanted to break. But here's what they didn't calculate. Pressure builds things. The version of you that got rejected didn't die. It went underground. It went dark. It stopped performing for people who were never really watching. And in that silence, in that cold, in that space where the noise used to be, it started building. Not for them, not to prove something to their faces. Building because there was finally nothing left to lose. And that is the most dangerous state a person can enter. You know what they fear? Not failure. Not competition. They fear the person who stopped needing their approval. Because once that happens, once you realize their opinion was never the ceiling, it was just noise you mistook for a ceiling, there is nothing they can do to stop what comes next. You become unreadable. You stop reacting. You stop explaining. You stop showing up where you're not wanted and start showing up where you're inevitable. The version of you they rejected is not the same version standing here now. That person was soft in ways they didn't know. Soft in the need to be understood. Soft in the belief that if you just showed them who you really were, they'd choose you. Soft in the idea that love or loyalty or opportunity would come if you were just good enough. That softness cost you, but it also taught you something no comfort ever could. It taught you that the only validation that matters is the kind you build with your own hands. In the dark, with no audience, when the result is the only witness. So what are you building right now? Not what are you talking about building? Not what you've planned to build since the rejection. What are you actually constructing, day by day, in the hours no one sees, in the discipline no one applauds? Because that's where the gap gets created. While they moved on, while they forgot your name, replaced you, acted like you never existed, you were in a room alone, becoming something they don't have a category for. That's not a comeback. Comebacks are for people who need witnesses. This is a transformation, and transformations happen in private. They can't reach you now, not because you're hiding, because you've elevated. There is a version of you being forged right now that exists above the level of their opinions, their comparisons, their limited perception of what you were. They made their decision with incomplete data. They judged a chapter and called it the whole book. Let them. Because here is the truth that rejection never wants you to find. The people who stayed, the opportunities that held, the rooms that opened, they were calibrated for the version of you that was still forming. The ones that closed were doing you a service. They were removing distractions. They were clearing the path. They were telling you, without knowing it, that what you're building doesn't belong in a small room. You don't need them to see it. You don't need them to understand it. You don't need their apology, their acknowledgement, or their moment of realization when they finally see what you've become. That hunger for their recognition. Let it die. Feed something else. Feed the work. Feed the silence. Feed the version of you that never needed a witness to keep going. They rejected you. And you're still here. Still building. Still becoming. And what you're building now, what you've been constructing in the dark, in the cold, in the long silence after the door closed, they don't have the clearance to reach it anymore, and they never will.